so it's the back to school workshop. Here we go, we're on record. We're gonna be looking now in depth at the assignment tool. And the assignment tool, if you've used Voces for the last few years, we've made some updates. It still works functionally pretty similar, but it's better and it is more accessible. It comes about because of some of those changes that Chris talked about in that last session. And so this is what it looks like, and we're gonna really get into it, but just let me show you overall what we're gonna do in this session. I'm gonna talk about wayfinding, which what I mean by that is just how do you find your way around the assignment tool? So how do you navigate and how do you create things? And then Voces has so many different settings on a lot of the assignments and assignment types that I couldn't possibly go over every one of them in 45 minutes. So instead, I'm going to try to show you all a process for how you can understand it and you can learn any of those settings that you want. If there's a setting that you're not sure what it is, hopefully you'll be able to just follow this process and that will help you get started. All right, so let's talk about wayfinding. And I'm going to move away from my presentation here and go over to, hold on 1 second, go back here. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And for this, I'm just going to choose Voces for Mundo 2. I have a few things, the new title, and I have some settings assigned. Now, when I go into the assignment tool, it's up at the top. You can see that there's all sorts of things going on in here. And we're going to try to take it a little bit at a time. But first, I'm going to make sure that everything just looks the same. I don't want it to be different for you for the first time you see it. There we go. You'll notice that we've got folders. We've got different classes. There's a couple of new buttons that we've added, expand all folders. So if you want to look at every assignment for every one of your classes, that's a lot, and that can get overwhelming. So one of these nice little new features that we have, collapse all folders. And so you can just see your folder structure. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is just the organization that you have here. Some teachers will use folders a lot. Some teachers never use folders. It's kind of what is right for you, for your organization. Now, some people will have folders and they'll say, okay, I'm going to put all of my assessments into one fall semester summative assessments. Here they go. Other teachers are going to do it by date. They might say week 1, or other teachers might not have folders for a lot of things, but then they know, okay, sub day, I'm going to have my assignments do all those. Now that looks like a lot. So another thing to keep in mind, if you want some of your classes to disappear, you don't want to focus on class number 2, you can just uncheck that. And I only see class number 1. And so then I could expand, see all of these. Now I'll just show these just for the demo purposes now. A couple of other things to keep in mind. You can also use the tab and the and enter. So you can use your keyboard. Right now, I'm not using my mouse, so you can tab through. This is all part of the changes to make this accessible to users who maybe can't use, who need to use a screen reader, or who they can't use the mouse. So a couple of things. When you're in a folder, these buttons you can play around with and you won't hurt too much, but some of them are pretty straightforward. You can change the name of a folder. You can disable a folder. And I'll show you that a little bit later, how this affects your student view. And you could, here's one I think right here is important. When you want to have students do assignments in a particular order, you use this button. So let me go to a folder that makes more sense. Let's say that I was assigning some assignments from Go. And I'll just look at one class. Well, we've got episode 1, part 1, part 2, part 3. I don't want my students to accidentally go out of order. I want them to do part 1 before they do part 2, before they do part 3. And that's what's going to happen right there. Now, you could click on this button and edit everything all at once. We're not ready for this, as a group, but I just want you to know this is called the bulk editor. And if you wanted to change all of those assignments at one time, you could do that. But That's essentially what you need to know is just how do you use this? Oh, we also have a calendar view, and you can see the calendar will load up. You can see all of those things. I'm going to focus today on just the list view. I'm going to head back to over to my presentation. And really now, I want to talk about that process, right? And so just again, the process is how are you going to learn some of these assignment settings? Because I know that many of you have asked, oh, what's this button do? Or I'm not sure if I check this button, what's going to happen? Well, essentially, here's your process. I'm going to have you log in as a teacher and a student at the same time. You're going to create an assignment as a teacher. Then you're going to take the assignment as a student. And then you're going to change something as a teacher. And then you're going to take the assignment again as a student, and you're going to just see what happens. And really, if you can follow this process, it's a great way to kind of break down anything. So the first part of this process is this is a skill. It's separate in itself. I'm going to just run through it real quick. I'm going to show you how to log in as a teacher and a student at the same time. If you don't need to follow along with me. We will share this presentation afterwards, and it's going to be a little different for every user. So I'm going to race through this, and then I'll show you more slowly live on my Google Classroom or on my Google Chrome browser. So one thing that everybody does need to know is when you make a class in Voces, there's always a sample student in there. So I don't know if you all have noticed, oh, who put that sample student? Every time you did it, Chris made it so there's automatically a sample student, which allows you to log in different ways as a student. So you can see exactly what the student sees. So there's a couple of things here. I'm going to find that sample student ID by going up into my teachers panel, clicking on class management. And once I'm there, I'm going to click on the ID card. And you saw Erin do this a little bit in her last presentation. And you're going to look for that student that's called sample student. And there's going to be the user ID. In this case, it's Sam628. Notice that the class ID is Mike J. That's me. That's my class. So all of my students are going to put in that class ID, Mike J. But the sample is SAM628. All right. Then you're going to use another browser, or you can use either an incognito window or a private browser. And again, this is different depending on which browser you have. So I'm going to use Google Chrome. And when you do, you click on a new incognito window, and it basically allows you to log in as a teacher and a student at the same time. If you're in Firefox, it's the same thing, but they don't call it incognito. They call it a private window. Safari, also the same thing, but they call it a private window. And so then you're going to need that sample student ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually log in as the sample student, and I'm going to show you all live how to accomplish this task. So first of all, let's go back to my teachers panel and class management. I've got two different classes here. And you can see these are all my students. And you'll notice in both of them, I've got a sample student. So what I'm going to log in class number 1 as my sample student. And you can find sample student on here. And sometimes some of you all I've seen your class list where you've got 100 students on here. And so you have a little bit of trouble finding sample student, but you can do that. I'm going to copy that user ID. And again, because I'm on Chrome, Chrome calls it an incognito window. I'm going to open up a new incognito window. And then I'm going to go to Voces and I'm going to log in. Now, this is like the first time I've ever used it because that's what incognito window does. So I can say student, log in. Now, Mike J, remember, all of my students log in with the class ID of Mike J. And then I'm going to just paste in what I just got. And now I'm logged in as a student. So what I'm going to do is now go split screen, and I'm going to just take a breath. All right, so I'm going to put the student on the right, and the teacher on the left. So if you can ever get to this place where you can see, hey, I find this helps me a lot to understand some of the new settings. When I wanted to learn about Voces, I was like, all right, well, let me try this out. And remember, this is part of the process. It's log in as a teacher and a student simultaneously. I'm going to go back to my presentation. We'll be back here in a second, but there's a few things I'm going to definitely point out to you. You will notice, and I'll show you this in the live version in a second, the teacher version on the left has a box with a transcript in it. Anything that's in a yellow box on the teacher side, you won't see it on the student side. Students won't see it. It might be notes to you all. It could be some answers. It could be descriptions for how you're presenting a story. So let's keep moving through and you'll see a couple of things. All right, so let's get back to that process. You're going to log in on as both. Then we're going to create an assignment, and then we're going to complete the assignment. And we're going to change the setting, and then we're going to complete the assignment. So that's what we're looking for. And really, this is a mindset. As a teacher, you have to learn new technologies, new platforms all the time, right? Okay, I got to put in my attendance on this. I have to do my grades here, but I'm also taking curriculum from this company and that company. So you have to be ready to experiment. So let me just get back to what we've got here. I'm going to go back to the live because I think it's a little bit more effective to show you all here. First of all, I'm going to go to the assignments tool as the teacher and the assignments tool as the student. Notice up here where it says 20 next to the assignment icon. That means there's 20 assignments that have been assigned. That's a lot. If I'm a student, I maybe don't want to see 20. But let's just take a second and everyone just look and process. What's the difference between the student version and the teacher version? Or the student version on the right, teacher version on the left. It seems pretty straightforward. Students are only going to have one class. They're not going to have multiple classes. And you will notice right here, this is what the student sees. Okay, it looks a little bit different. They don't see the color coded because they don't need any color coding. They've got, this is it. And they're going to click and it's going to take them to the appropriate assignment. But what I want to do is just point out a couple of things to you all. Let's say that you ended up not going on, you didn't need a sub that day, and you're going to just save this to the next day that you have a sub. Or some schools or some teachers like to have sub days set up ahead of time. And so you could disable this folder. Whoops, I went to the wrong button. Sorry, I went to the bulk editor. Let me go back to it. And let me disable this folder. And now you can see it's a darker gray. Now it hasn't changed anything from the student side, but once the student opens up now, you'll notice sub day is gone. And so for you, you might want to hang on to that, and it's going to make sub plans for that one random day if it's something that makes sense. Again, let's look at what we've got going on here. Remember how I said in Go, Viva tu manera, I wanted students to do part 1 before they did part 2, before they did part 3. So I clicked this green button, this button up here. Let's make these go in order. Well, if my student clicks here, watch what happens. They can't click on this. They have to do 1 before they do 2, before they do 3. And if you've been in the classroom, you know that you're going to have some students who are really going to focus on, I'm unable to click on 2. It's broken. It doesn't work. Well, as a teacher, if you haven't seen this feature and you didn't realize you clicked this button, it may not make any sense to you and you might get confused. But hopefully now that you've seen this, if you do this stuff with logging in as a teacher and a student, you might be able to be like, oh, okay, well, if I unclick that button and then I refresh this and this teacher, the student goes back here, now they could click on any of these at the same time. So that's just one of the ways that you can use this process. If you log in as a teacher and a student, you can see all of these different features at the same time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of assignments from scratch. And in order to do that, I wanted to go to a different title. So we're here in a couple, this is, I think I chose, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and change my title. And I wanted to go to Puente, another one of our new titles. And so this student won't make any sense anymore. So I'm going to log out with this student. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to get back in. And this is just good practice for you. If you want to go to your class, all right, I can find out one of my students, sample student. And I don't know if you remember, sample student looks the same, but it was a different ID here. So I'm going to log in. Again, it's Mike J, sample student. And I've already got my split screen up, but you'll notice that this student has 5 assignments. And so what I'm going to just go back in and let's go into the assignment tool and see what we've got. So a couple of things. If you want to create an assignment from scratch, that's what I'm going to do. And we're going to eventually see how that affects my students over here. So for now, I'm just going to ignore some of these assignments that are already made. Now let's do an assignment from scratch. Now, I can assign the current page, or I can go to a different page. Now, remember, the current page is just whatever I happen to be on. Right now, it's activity 1 in pareja. But if I were somewhere else, let's say I'm now on activity 2, and I go to my assignment tool, new assignment, the current page is that page. So it's the thing that's behind you, behind that little screen. Looks like I've already assigned it. So that's good. That helps me know, okay, I don't want to reassign it. I could, and it would just change the settings. But I think what I want to do is go to a different page, one that hasn't been assigned. And I'm just going to choose Unit 2. And let's go to the first story in Unit 2. And let's say that I wanted to do, I can either do 1 at a time, or I can just do 2 at a time. I can put them in a folder or not. But let's go ahead and do 2. Actually, let's do 3 activities at the same time. We'll go ahead and finish selecting the pages. I'll assign it to both of my classes. Now, if I wanted to, I could assign it to just a couple of my students, right? I could assign it to just Isabel and just LeBron, or maybe Cheryl as well. Some teachers really like this if you need to do any differentiation. I will tell you, if you get into your LMS, which I'll talk about later, when I used to use Canvas, it wouldn't allow me to assign it to just one student. So like if you're using some learning management systems, not all, it usually works better to assign it to everybody. And for this example, now I'm going to assign it to everyone. Again, here's where you can put it in a folder or not put it in a folder. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in a folder. I'm going to let it be available right now. I'm going to put a due date on it. And in a minute, you're going to see a couple of things, or just right now, you're going to see a few things. Look at all of these features. And I don't know how many times I've had teachers say, oh, well, what's this do? What's this do? What's this do? This is the thing. It's difficult to try to learn every single one of these at once. So we're going to rely on this process. We're going to check some of these buttons and see what happens. So let's look at one. So my wife is a Spanish teacher. I used to be a math teacher, and she likes to make every assignment worth 10 points. That's just the way her class set up, the way she has it. I used to make everything worth 100 points. So there's no wrong way, there's no right way. I could make all of these worth 100 points. Or if you choose not to do anything, if there's 7 questions, then an assignment will be worth 7 points. If there's 1 question, assignment will be worth 1 point. But I think that's an easy one to understand. And let's put a submission limit on it and say, you're going to get 3 chances at this assignment. Teachers generally understand that. And the different types of due dates, they're definitely interested in. And so you can put different types of due dates where they can see the review. Actually, I'm speaking incorrectly. The types of due dates were on the previous screen. And this is just for when the students are going to be able to review it. What I'm going to do just for the demo purposes, I'm going to show the correct answers and do it immediately after the submission. Again, we're involved in this process, so I might not know what these things are going to do, but I'm just going to set it up because it's an assignment that is to all my classes. All my students will see it. If I wanted to only test it out beforehand, I could go back and not assign it to all of my classes. I could go through that process and just do the students. So I'm going to kind of go from, I could just do sample student because I don't want any of my students to come in. That's kind of up to you. All right, so let's just go through and put it in folder or no folder. I'll put it in this folder. I can't remember if I created this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating this. We'll call this my demo folder. All right, and these are the different types of deadlines: hard, soft, and open-ended. Students or teachers are definitely interested in these differences. We'll get into those later. But it's got my modified point value. I wanted to make those 100. And I've got submission limit of 3, show the correct answers immediately after. And then I could write a note here, don't need to do this assignment. Okay, so I now have these assignments created. As a student who's logged in over here, I accidentally logged out. So let me log back in. I think I've got that class ID still saved. Hope I've logged in as the correct student. Oh yeah. So over on the right, the demo folder. And let's see what we've got here. Looks like I found a bug because I went back. So let me just try this all over. That's kind of interesting. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close this. I'm going to do this assignment, create a new assignment, different pages. Now, what you just saw is one of those weird things. You know how I went back and forth? I think maybe that created an issue. So I'm going to go back, got the video. We'll double check after this, but that's something that Chris and I can solve. But we've got, I'll put in these 3 activities, finish selecting the page. I think it might be that I selected certain students. But anyway, I'm going to create a new folder. All right, my new demo folder. We'll put a due date on here. We'll make it due later this week. Use the selected dates. Let me go back to here. I'm going to try to reproduce all of those things. Submission limit of 3. Show the correct answers. Don't need a note there. All right. So I'm hoping, okay, now I see it. And if I go here, my new demo folder, there we go. So you'll notice that I chose certain settings. I'm going to just go to one of these assignments and see what happened as a student. You will notice that up here, I can go to the assignment as a teacher and a student, and I am in activity 1, Sierra Phil also. I'm going to go to that one here. I'm going to go to the assignment. Looks like this is what I've got. All right. So as a student, at the top, I will have some settings. And again, these things students may never read. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they're saying, oh, something doesn't work. And if you look and say, oh, the assignment, the due date, that helps you understand what settings you did on the left, how they affect the things on the right. So I'm going to just do some true false guessing right here. I know your students wouldn't do this. They would carefully read. They would save and submit. Now here is what I want you to see. Now, notice the settings that I created. I'm going to go back to the settings for this assignment, and we're going to go to here. I think that is the right assignment. Yep. So you notice the settings that I created. This is the modified point value. That doesn't matter. But they get 3 chances to do this. Show the correct answers immediately after the submission. So I just chose to set it up in a way where a student now sees the correct answers and they get other opportunities. So you know what I could do if I'm a student? Maybe I'll go back in and I want to change that one. I want to change that one. I want to change this one, this one, this one, and this one. And now watch what happens. I submit. Okay. So now this is really important. This is part of the process. When you change a setting, when you create a setting as a teacher, you get to think about what type of experience you've just created for your student. Now notice some students would have really worked hard. They would have looked at that feedback and said, oh, okay, I got this one wrong. Obviously the answer is this. There may be some students who know what the assignment settings are before they ever take it. And they say, oh, I've got 3 chances and I see the correct answers. They might just go through and choose cierto, cierto, cierto all the way through. But again, that's a different type of assignment. You might not care. You might say, okay, you know what? This is practice with some conjugation. So this is practice with, it's a summative assessment. Sorry, it's not a summative assessment. It's just a formative assessment. Did you maybe read the story? And sometimes there are assignments that teachers create, and they don't care if students do them 20 times, 50 times. They just want to make sure that they go through the process and they look at it. Now, it could be a different case. So as a teacher, you might change your mind and you might say, you know what, I don't want them to see the correct answers. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate to a different page just so I'm away from there. And I want to save this. They're no longer seeing the correct answers. And then if I, as a student, go back here, all right, go to assignment settings. Now I have seen the correct answers, but it wasn't right after the submission. And I think it's because I changed this after. So this might be good for you to know as a teacher. I submitted, and there we go. I see which ones were correct, which ones were not correct. All right, I'm gonna pause for 1 second and then just think about other types of settings that we can create. And so I'm going to create an assignment and change some of this. Actually, why don't we just use one of the assignments that I've already created, but I'm going to change one of the settings. So in my demo folder, my new demo folder, I will go into this assignment. And this is a question a lot of teachers have. What's this prevent leaving page do? Type in the chat if you think you know what prevent leaving page does, or if you've actually experimented. Just say, yes, I've done this before. I mean, it may sound obvious, but it may not until you actually try it. All right, I'm gonna copy those. I'm gonna save it. It should just be one warning. Now I'm gonna do a little refresh because sometimes what you need to do with your assignments, either log in as a student. I like to do a refresh here. Okay, so now you can see that was updated. So it says, got 7 assignments. Go to my new demo folder. And if I remember, it was unit 3, demo 1. All right, let's see, is this the one? Describa la escena. All right. So you'll notice this is a little bit different right off the bat. Do not leave this page once you start. I hit start. Okay, I'm here. This looks like a great, find a copy of sentence from a story that best describes each image. What if I decided, you know what, I wanted to go somewhere else, like maybe I'm going to go back to my presentation and then over here, all right. Now when I'm starting, I can say anything here, anything here. Now this activity, it's actually is not doing what I expected to happen here. So Chris, I don't know if you're here. Why isn't it giving me the warning here?
I don't think Chris is here,
Oh,
but
okay. So that is something
that happens sometimes.
yes.
Um,
And I'm not sure if it is just because I'm on the wrong thing or what.
it might be because you're in the private, like in the incognito. That might be the case. I don't know. Or try refreshing.
Yeah, let me see here if I can refresh. There you go. Yeah, so I think it may have worked a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my losses on this one and go back to another. Uh, but usually, and I've done it many times before, I'm not sure what has changed. Um, it will say, "Hey, you're not allowed to leave this page." Part of it might be that Chris made a setting for me because I, as a developer, have to do all sorts of weird things, and so I have privileges that students and teachers don't. Um, All right. Yeah, so I can see in the chat the prevent leaving page is one of the reasons why we chose Voces. Most publishers do not have that feature.
Can
Yeah,
I
it
add
is.
one thing really
Yes,
quick?
go ahead, please do.
Another thing that's like of that caliber is and that a lot of people don't know is that students can also like they can't paste anything into a text field when they're like as a student if they like typed the question like if they tried to use Google Translate for instance they wouldn't be able to copy and paste it into the text field for like an easy answer. And then they also can't paste out of Voces. So if they wanted to like Google Translate the story by like pasting it or copying it from Voces and pasting it into Google Translate, they can't. So
Yeah.
just like
So
ways to make it a lot harder for them.
that is a great feature. So if you'll see right now, I'm trying to highlight Carlitos está enfermo, and I can't do it. It doesn't allow me to just highlight that, so I can't do any paste. Now, if I'm on a different screen, I can copy this and I can try to paste it into here and let's see what happens. It doesn't work. So students can't do that. They have to physically type in.
They have to do the work.
Yes, they do. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back and we're going to create a new assignment and look at one of these other settings and see what we can do to use the assignment settings to experience the assignment in a little bit of a different way. All right. And so let's just do a new assignment. And we're going to go a different page from scratch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the first unit and let's look at one of the integrated performance assessments and we'll do some interpersonal speaking. And I'm going to select that. I'm not going to put this one in a folder. I am going to give it a due date. Again, this might be one of those where I don't care if they do it afterwards. You know, it could be something that, you know, it's time of the test that I want them to make sure they have it done. Or I can just put in the soft deadline. So you'll notice that some of the options available are different when it is a recording. And so you can see, you know, I could put a recording limit. I can automatically record this. Again, these are ones that you can test out. Let's just look and see what we've got. I could do the submission limit. I could say, you know what, let's just do one attempt. And again, the answers, this one wouldn't really matter if you cleared them because you've only got one attempt. So different combinations are going to create a different type of experience for the student. All right, students may only record each audio once. I'll go ahead and I'll do that. Let me try prevent students from leaving once it is started. And let me create the assignment. I got to move my Zoom controls. They keep getting in the way. Now you'll notice one thing that's different. These are in the assignments without the folder. So for my student here, I'm going to refresh this page. Sorry, I've got to move my close capture, or I got to move my Zoom control on this page. So let me reload. Okay, so let me go back to assignments. Assignments without a folder. Let's see what happens here. Oh, this is currently not available. That's because the thing that you saw right at the beginning, Chris did a demo of this. On this account, I have not yet made it available for my students. And so that's what I need to do. And I'm looking in the chat. It has happened. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Yes, you're talking about Google Translate. So if we get to this activity, some of you are going to encounter this at the beginning of the year. It's not currently available. And I don't know if it's because of the activity I chose or if it is because I need to change one of the settings. So what I'm going to do is, again, not even use that particular assignment, just because Chris would have to tell us, is it this assignment that's disabled, or do I need to go into my settings? Oh, look, this is it. Student media privacy settings. So you all are going to have the same thing. So this is the thing that threw me off. But think about this. How many times have you assigned something to your classes and then all of a sudden you're in the class and now you've got 15 students saying, this doesn't work, Mr. Jacob, doesn't work. This is why I like this process, because here I am, I'm in the middle of a presentation. I wasn't really sure what was happening. This activity type is not currently available. And it's because I still have these activities blocked for my students, because this is the new feature. We have the new privacy feature. And so I'll just remind everybody, if you do see that, you as a teacher, you can go into your setting and you can go to where we just were and unblock them. I've already done it. Audio recording activities allowed. So now, fingers crossed, as a teacher, I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to go. I don't know if I'll have to log out and log back in. And again, that could be the case. And I think, oh yeah, look at this. After changing this, you will need to log out and log back in to see the change. So again, I didn't read this. I was in the middle of doing something else. So let me just do that right now. I'm going to log out. Let me log back in. And this is me over here on the left. And we were in Puente's book. Okay. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to log out as a student as well. I want to make sure that I have the correct student. I'm going to log in as a student again, class management. Where was my sample student? Okay, and so now here we are, and it works. So let me just pause for a second and point out this. Here I am, I'm giving a presentation. I thought everything was ready to go and good. This is kind of like you getting ready for your class, right? You have assigned it, you put in all the work. Think about what I've done over the last half an hour, what I did to prepare yesterday to get ready for this. I'm going to assign this. It just didn't work. Isn't it better to find out ahead of time using the sample student, right? Because now when your students get into class, they're going to be sitting in their seats or they're going to be at home if it is a remote day or something like that. These things are going to be just solved right away. You wouldn't have known that unless you logged in as a student and you actually looked at the assignment. Now you're going to get to a place later in the semester where you have all of the tech things down. But at first, the first 2, 3, 4 assignments, so the first week or two that you do this, or it's a new assignment type. What if this is the first time you've done an assignment type? It really does a lot to keep logged in as a student and a teacher. So now here I am, and I can record these assignments. And I'm not going to have you all listen to me record these assignments, but that's essentially the process. By the way, these are some of the assignment types that teachers, Spanish teachers, French teachers, German, Italian, everybody loves to have these assignment types. So you can actually hear your students. And so when they save and submit, everything is good. Now, again, you will notice a couple of things in the user experience. These can't be automatically graded. The computer can't say, oh, they're right or wrong, right? And so the student sees this little thing. It's like, okay, they have submitted it, but they don't have, it hasn't been seen by the teacher yet. And David Wilson is going to show you how to grade activities in one of the next 2 sessions. I think it's right after lunch. And he's going to probably explain a little bit more of how that works. But again, this is your assignment settings. You'll notice over here, the student sees all of these assignment settings. Save the limit. You'll notice be able to submit again. You may only record your audio once. Now, I just want to do something. Earlier, we went to, I think it was this assignment, no leaving the page. And we were here. I just have a theory. Maybe after I've logged in, log back out, it would give me that. All right. Well, I think I might have the leaving the page disabled. So for whoever was in the chat and you said you love that feature, have no worry, it is there. And I'll make sure if you want to email me, that's Mike J at vocesdigital.com, or you can do info@Voces. If you have any questions, I will make sure that that is clearly explained for you. All right, let's look at a couple of the other things. I'm going to do a time check, and we're at 44. So we have time to look at 1 or 2 other assignments to just see how the assignment tool and the settings can affect the student experience over here. And so I'm going to go back to my assignments, and we're going to just go down to let's go to week 1, Easy Tema. And I can't remember which of the classes that I've already logged into. This student has not completed any of these assignments. So I'm going to edit here. Now, again, I can edit these assignments and I can change any of the options in here. And so again, changing hard deadline, soft deadline, if you want to see what that is like, that's what you do here. Because remember, it is a mindset where because you're logged in as a student and a teacher, then you can kind of click and see what happens. I don't need to worry about modifying the point value. Those are pretty straightforward. Max timer. Here's one. I'll do min timer. And I'm going to copy this to both classes, to demo 2 and to demo 1. I just want to make sure that we know that this is Visitemos Costa Rica in Unit 1. Okay, and I'm going to refresh this because I want to make sure that we're in the right place. All right, so I just made some assignment setting changes over on the left as the teacher. Now I'm about to see what's going to happen on the right. This page is timed. You must spend at least 2 minutes here before you submit. You may take longer. Here's the word at least. I want you all to just think in your mind, what do you think that means? It says I have to spend at least 2 minutes. So let's see here. All right. So this is a great activity, and you want to make sure that students, they're looking through, right? There's all sorts of things to read. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what some students might do. They might already know the answer, and I'm not going to, in a second, to type in. Now, these are some tech questions that some teachers have had before. They're like, all right, my students are not allowed to submit. You'll notice save and submit. It doesn't work. And so there is a reason for that. It seems like it's a bug, right? And so if you're a teacher and you click that box over here, and I think it was whichever one it was, it just says they have to spend at least 2 minutes. If you didn't realize that you clicked it, students would say, oh, I can't submit. And they're raising their hands. They're telling you, I can't submit, Mr. Jacobs, what's going on? You have no idea. But because you've done this ahead of time, you've logged in as both the teacher and the student, you might realize, oh, wait a second. It's because 2 minutes. And look, I can't even submit until this. So again, this is one of those things where the process, I believe, is really, really important. The process is, as a reminder, you log in as a teacher and a student, you create some assignments, and then you do those assignments as a student, and then see how your experience is different. You can get a whole bunch of little tech issues out of the way. You might realize, oh, wait a second, can't submit. If you have this question while you're doing it, your students will probably have a similar question. But just think about this now. If you could say to your students, oh, if every hand went up and you were just say one time, oh, you have to spend at least 2 minutes. Now, problem to solve. Now they're not stressed. Now they're not all coming at you. Yeah, and I do see, and encourage students to read the directions. But it's funny. It's not just students who don't read the direction. It's me, it's you, it's all of us. When we're navigating around a site, we spend a lot of time in our development to try to make it an easy experience for the students, for the teacher. And so that's what you got to keep in mind here. So I just want to summarize a couple of the things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip through some of these. And I want to just go down to what you can do in any of these processes, right? If you see these assignment settings and you're not sure which one, click some of them and try them out. Create an assignment, assign it to the sample student. Go ahead and click it. All right, you want to do a different one? These are different assignment settings. And you'll notice if you assign an audio recording, it's going to have different assignment settings than if you do a multiple choice. If you assign a folder that has audio recording and multiple choice, it's going to have all of those settings in there together. So there's different types of activities. Click it and then take it. And that's really the whole thing that we're talking about here today. And hopefully I got that across. One is just, there's been some updates in the assignment tool. And hopefully it's more, it's a little easier to navigate. The other is follow the process, because there are so many things. And you'll see, I made some mistakes here and there today. But if you follow this process, it does a couple things. One, it helps you solve the problems before you're in front of students. Before the students are asking the questions, it makes it easier for the students. They have fewer questions and they can do what you want them to do, which is focus on learning Spanish or learning French, or learning whatever language that you're teaching. So again, every decision that you make, it's going to change that student experience. And so if you can try this, log in as a teacher, log in as a student, and do both things at the same time, it's going to help you create that student experience, because then you really understand what it means. And it's also going to help you answer tech questions right off the bat. And it's also going to help you find mistakes that you made, just like I did. And you know, Chris would say it wasn't a mistake, you just hadn't clicked that button. That's true. I toggled that button so students couldn't use it. It's there for a reason, but it got in my way for a moment. But knowing that that was able to happen, knowing that that was happening, allowed me to fix it before the student. All right, so hopefully that answered all of the questions that you have. Remember, there are a lot of free virtual training options for us. You all can always make an appointment to have a meeting with anybody on our team, Neil or Chris or I. We can walk you through, show you how to do things, how to create assignments. If there's anything that's really just not working and that you really want you really want to understand, this is just what we do. So we're available. Please send us an email or just go ahead and create a meeting with us, and we'll be ready to help you out.